Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. I hope you're all ready for some LGBTQIA plus history in The Sims 4. Yes, you heard me correctly. For this week's Pride themed video, we are gonna be taking a little retroactive look at the LGBTQ plus representation that has come to The Sims 4 throughout the last 10 years. Because I can say, hand on heart, this is absolutely the best representation that we've seen in the Sims games. I mean, we went from the Sims 1 presentation where two Sims of the same gender made out with one another and it was all an accident and it was meant to be wiped from the game until they said, you know what, keep it in. Let the Sims love who they want to love. Since then, inclusion, diversity and representation has come to The Sims 4 in an outstanding way. Especially within the gaming industry, I feel like The Sims 4 has really been a spearhead of representation when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community. I kind of wanted to do a timeline of when we happened to get all of this representation. It's been really fun to kind of go back in time and check all of these things out. Starting off way back when, 2 years into The Sims 4, in Pride month of 2016, I was actually away when this dropped, so I couldn't make like a full dedicated video on it. This was when I knew the team were dedicated to getting representation within the game so that people could recreate and see themselves or their friends or their family. And that was, of course, the custom gender settings. Now, I'm sure if you've ever laid a hand on The Sims 4, you remember these. This was such a momentous occasion. This is kind of the first time that The Sims has opened up accessibility within clothes and gender frames, and this was the first time they kind of stepped out of the gender binary. One, it opened up all the voices for every single sim. It used to be if you had your gender set to female, then you would only get these like 3 feminine voices, and then if you had it set to male, you would have these 3 masculine voices. It obviously also introduced this drop down, which is customize, and here you can choose gender. You can choose your physical frame, you can keep your overarching gender as female, and then you could choose masculine. That would change the way that your sim looked. I will say this still isn't 100% now. The clothes still don't fit, especially like the older clothes. I have seen it change recently. Specifically when it comes to kits, they make them kind of a bit more genderless and they make them fit both frames, which is so nice to see. I so hope that that trend continues, and I don't think they'll ever go back and make clothing look better. It specifically affects the trousers and kind of like a crotch area and then also in the chest area. But I mean, no other game was giving us these options, especially back in 2016. Then you can choose your clothing preference. This basically just decides which tag it opens up. So if you do want to go for masculine clothes on a feminine frame, obviously you can just choose that through the filters, but that kind of does it for you if you don't want to like change the filters in every single category. You could choose whether your sim would be able to become pregnant, get others pregnant, or neither one of those things. Whether the sim could breastfeed, that's basically what this produce milk means, yes or no. And can the sim use the toilet standing, yes or no? Obviously, if you choose yes, they stand up to pee. If you choose no, they sit down. I don't think I've ever chosen this option, but when you click on a dresser or a mirror, if you choose to change sim, you will be able to customize your sim's gender, but also customize your sim's body and face using the good old push and pull features. So it doesn't unlock like changing traits like CAS.full edit mode does. I had no idea that those were actually unlocked if you choose to change sim. And obviously with that update meant that you could start to tell trans sim stories. It was definitely still within the binary. You still had to choose between the overarching gender of a sim between male and female to actually decide on their pronouns. Non-binary wasn't really a thing with this update. It was still very much core in the binary act. fact, but it did allow you to explore your Sims' gender presentation. But after that, we didn't really see any LGBTQ plus representation when it came to the actual settings and systems within the game until it got to June of 2019, which is when The Sims actually collaborated with the It Gets Better project. During this collaboration, we got some updated free Pride clothing, which obviously kind of allowed your Sims to celebrate Pride dressed in rainbows. They even had it for toddlers and children. They got the gender neutral bathroom door, which was so welcomed at this point. I can't believe it actually took till 2019 to get that. And then also the Pride flags were introduced. These are a wall decoration that everyone got. This was a base game update. And then in the next month, July 2019, we got the official rebranding of The Sims 4, aka when I made Sims Twitter so mad. Obviously, we got this new cover art that we are all so used to seeing within the game now, and as soon as this landed, my eye went to these two Sims right here. Now, this rebrand didn't go over too well. That was because the loading screen was actually triggering migraines for an awful lot of people. It didn't take them long to actually fix that. It was like the very specific type of color blue that they were using, and generally people just didn't like the change. However, I took the opportunity and I tweeted, at least the new cover art supports the gays. And let me just tell you, the reaction to this was galpalitis. So many people jumped down my throat with like, why are you labeling them as gay? They don't have to be gay just because they have like their arms around each other. They could be friends or sisters. History will say they were just best friends. And then just a mere month later, The Sims actually dropped all of these new Sims onto their gallery. Lo and behold, it came out, and they also came out that they were in a relationship together. Tell me my gaydar isn't on point when it even works for pixel people. We had a canonically queer couple on the cover art of The Sims 4. Flash forward to 2022, February to be precise, we had the diabolical release that was My Wedding Stories. Now, that's not even mentioning the fact that this wasn't planning on being released, or was being released with a different cover art, but it wasn't going to be released in Russia due to homophobia and laws within Russia. We finally got around that, and The Sims were like, we want to stand by this pack. We've looked into it. We are actually able to release this pack with the cover art of two female presenting Sims getting married. That felt like a win for everyone. Not only did it have that controversy, and then obviously the controversy of the pack just not being very good when it came out. It shouldn't have ever been released when it was. It was what I like to call the official yassification of The Sims 4. It does feel like one of the gayest packs we have had to date, which, by the way, one of my Pride Month videos is going to be tier ranking packs that I think are the gayest, so keep an eye out for that one. It genuinely felt like this pack just vomited rainbow, which I absolutely love. I don't always use the rainbow swatches, however, I like that they're there. I like that it's a bit of fun. A lot of LGBTQ plus simmers were like, this is too far, this is gay agenda gone too far, which was kind of in a jokey way, but I flippin' love it. I love how they gave us a rainbow swatch for pretty much everything that came in this pack. Even though I don't use it that often in like weddings, sometimes I use it for pride or celebrations, and also I use it at prom as well, because I do think it's a nice little way to have teenagers celebrate themselves. So there is some positivity when it comes to My Wedding Stories. Didn't think I would be turning into a My Wedding Stories apologist in this video. 2022 really popped off though. We also got customizable pronouns in May of 2022. Obviously, this is still hopefully being worked on, I would like to say, considering they did use the age-old classic that The Sims 4 loves to use, which is first iteration. It was only released in English. They basically said we still need to do research and we need to figure out how it's going to work best in all the other localized languages that The Sims is actually released in. They actually recently just went in and changed some of the text because for they, them pronouns specifically, a lot of the grammar was like very wonky when it came to notifications. While this isn't the be and end all representation of non-binary and other gender diverse folks, we strongly feel it's important for us to approach better inclusivity over time as we figure out ways to work within the limitations of our code. It's actually in the name area of Create a Sim, so you just have to click on hello, my name is what? My name is who my pronouns are. And then you have the change pronouns drop down. Now, if you don't change their pronouns, by default, it will just relate to the like overarching gender that you have set. So if you have chosen your sim to be female, their pronouns default to she, her. If you have chosen for your sim to be male, their pronouns will default to he, him. But you can change that at any time by hopping into CAS.full edit mode. I do kind of wish there was a way where you could just like click on a mirror or something and choose to change your pronouns. And then maybe you get like a little happy moodlet being like, I finally have chosen my pronouns and like these are what fit with me right now. You have the option of they, them, she, her, he, him. And then you also have custom pronouns. So if you want to do she, they, he, or any form of a neo pronoun, you can also input that. When this first came out, a couple of people are like, what is this actually going to do within the game? I feel like Sims don't really refer to each other with pronouns, obviously, because they speak in Simlish, so they don't use English, they don't use English pronouns. However, pronouns are a massive thing in the game when it comes to the notification system. Whenever the game references your sim, sometimes it will use their name, most of the time it will actually use their pronouns. So that's kind of where this came into it. I would love to see some updates when it comes to pronouns. I really wish that when you hovered over a sim as you were like playing the game, you know, if you just hover over a stranger, where it has their name and also the sim's age, I wish it also had the pronouns like maybe under their name or next to their name so that you as a player knew how to refer to them. I think that honestly could be really, really helpful. I don't know if there's a game limitation that means that they can't do that, but that label would definitely be handy because right now, especially when we get new townies, which obviously we will be getting into the townie representation, the only real way you can tell their pronouns is either if you go check out their family bio, which sometimes it doesn't even mention their pronouns, they are just spoken about using their name, or if you hop in to create a sim with one of those townies, or you actually just play the game as one of those townies. So for me, I would love it if there was just a little label near their name being like, hey, this sim has they, them pronouns. Boom. Cool. That's how I will refer to that sim. And I also just think it normalizes pronouns a little bit more again. Like we have got used to using pronouns in introductions to ourselves. We've got used to using them on like emails and social media. I think that that should also be the standard in The Sims 4. Following on from pronouns back in May of 2022, in July of 2022, we got the Sexuality update. This came as the pre-patch update before high school years. This was when The Sims really were like, we want to try and bring these things together. We want Sims to be able to have labeled sexualities. We want you to represent yourselves and tell Sim stories. Again, this was met sometimes with people being like, why do we need this? Like every Sim is open, like no matter who you choose to romance, like it's kind of whichever direction you want to go in. I just feel like the Sexuality update actually allowed you to say, hey, this is who my sim is romantically connecting to or wants to woohoo with. These are their woohoo interests, and I'm putting a label on this because I'm either proud of my label and I want to show that off with my sims, or just because it was like the specific story that you wanted to tell. And then other sims who didn't match your romantic or woohoo interests could then also be like turned down and just be like, hey, I'm actually not into you in that way, sorry, but you don't float my boat, and that is a-okay. It kind of put it in writing for Sims. As a team, we hold creativity, discovery, inclusivity, and play as core values and strive every day to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion for our people and community. There's so much further to go, and whilst I can't get into the details of where exactly we go next, please know we are committed to continuing to improve our representation of the LGBTQIA+ community. I kind of just want to bring light to the different ways of attraction that your sim can feel. So my sim is attracted to is the first option, romantically attracted to. This is a simple affirmative statement of who your sim is attracted to. If a sim whose gender doesn't match your sim's attraction settings attempts a romantic interaction with your sim, they'll be rejected. You can choose any combination, so you can choose one box, you can choose no boxes, you can choose all boxes to reflect your sim's romantic orientation. Further down the line, we'll be able to expand this to include additional gender identities that we don't have at the time. So again, this is still quite binary. Right now, pronouns are really the only non-binary option that we have within the game. Pronouns live outside the gender binary that The Sims 4 was kind of built on. Hopefully we do get to a point in the coding of The Sims where they can like eradicate that and actually have like non-binary and other genders actually within the game. Mechanically, non-binary Sims just don't yet exist in Sims 4. Whilst we've made great progress in representing non-binary Sims with the pronouns update, we acknowledge pronouns are not the same thing as gender identity. And then you have the choice of whether your sim is exploring romantically. Sims set to no for exploring will not shift orientation, so that's kind of like they're decided, they know what their sexuality is, they're like, hey, even if a person who flirts with me isn't part of that like romantically attracted to that I have already chosen, I'm gonna say no to them, I'm gonna deny that because that is not for me. And then the second option with exploring set to yes, Sims will have an initial sexual orientation chosen in the previous step, but it can change throughout gameplay. So they're kind of open to maybe opening that up a little bit more. As your sim experiences romantic interactions, they may find themselves in a very different place than where they started. And then the third option is your woohoo interest. Determines who your sim can woohoo with. If they're a teenager, it's called mess around with. If you're trying to tell the story of an asexual sim, you could leave all options unchecked. On the flip side, you could tell the story of an aromantic sim by selecting woohoo interest but leaving all romantic attraction boxes unchecked, and then obviously choosing no to exploring romantically. And with this and the arrow ace representation, they also added a new interaction. So anyone that your sim becomes good friends with, and as long as they are a young adult or older, you can ask to become woohoo partners. If they accept, you can now perform woohoo without romance. However, they can also choose to not accept that if they don't want to. And then, of course, just like any update that we usually get for gender and sexuality and all these kind of extra options, if you just leave it, it will always be the same as it was in the base game, which is Sims exploring romantically, interested in woohoo with both genders. That's the way every sim has worked previously, and if you choose not to change anything, that's how all the sims will act in the future. It's under the same like more customizable details where gender was. You can choose this sexual orientation tab, and this is where you actually choose to set your sexuality. Selecting no will prompt this sim to reject other sims that do not meet their attraction type. And finally, in January of 2023, there was an update, and this was all base game, so this came to everyone. We got the medical wearables, but along with that, we also got top surgery scars. Under the same body category, all players can find body scars with an option for teen and older male sims, masculine or feminine frame, to add top surgery scar to their sims. You can find 2 new assets in Create a Sim. Under the tanks in the top category, you will find a binder top asset for your teen and older. These unfortunately aren't playable. Like, they don't actually have an effect on your Sim's chest. They don't bind the chest. They kind of do just look like a crop top, but it was a nice little piece of representation, especially for Simmers who wanted that for maybe around the pool and like in your swimwear outfits. Also in March of 2023, with the release of Growing Together, obviously we had science babies, which means that your Sims didn't only need to adopt, they could actually choose to have a science baby with whoever they wanted to. Your Sims can also adopt a child that isn't theirs, which means that there is a little adoption certificate that shows up. And we also got stretch marks and cesarean scars. That originally only came for female Sims. However, they then updated it to also be applied to masculine Sims. Again, just a little bit of trans representation, which was absolutely needed. And now moving on to the townies, where obviously a lot of this representation and updates that we've spoken about come into play. Most of these are going to be like canonically queer townies. Those townies who are like actually written to be part of the LGBTQ plus community. It either says it in their bios, it says it in their relationships, or it says it actually within their creator sim, within their gender pronouns or like preferences. However, there is one exception to that rule. I personally don't think that they are an exception. I think if all of these updates like existed before this townie came out, they personally, in my mind, would be like non-binary. So this is kind of a headcanon, and it is, of course, Darling Walsh. Came with City Living, is part of the Karaoke Legends, actually does use the gender update, doesn't have like any different like customizable gender options, however does dress in masculine tag clothing. Now of course this could be just be because Darling is a tomboy, uses she her pronouns. I have always like seen Darling as non-binary, they them, even he him sometimes in my mind. We have Caleb Vertor, who actually like in their bio and stuff it doesn't mention anything about Caleb. However, in the vampire trailer that we got for The Sims 4, Caleb's name was actually something completely different in that trailer, and he was caught romancing a bunch of Sims no matter how they presented. And so a lot of people have stated that Caleb is bi, like canonically within the Sims 4 universe. The first official one actually like written within the game, not in a trailer, not a headcanon, was obviously Brent and Brent hecking all the way back in Cats and Dogs. Now personally, I would love to have seen some LGBTQ plus representation in the base game or any of the earlier packs. Cats and Dogs, I think from what I can remember, maybe it came out in like 2016. They're living life in their new home and it seems to agree with these newlyweds, Brent and Brent. Small town bustle inspires Brent's paintings, whilst Brent loves to explore the bay's beautiful neighbors. But will they ever agree on who gets to take their beloved Rosie with them? The MLM Originals. Then we skipped a couple of releases and we went to Sulani in Island Living. Oh my word, this one was surprising to me. Honestly, I feel one of the gayest worlds that we have within the game, but I'm gonna save that for the video that I've already spoken about. So first off, we have the Ngata household. We obviously have Oleana and her son Tane, and then Layla was actually traveling like in Sulani and happened to meet Oleana. They fell in love and boom, they now live together. They are in a relationship with one another. And then we also had trans icon. We had Leah sitting high above the center of Ohanali town. Kiala watches over the townsfolk that look to her for guidance. This spirited, young at heart grandmother has taken young Leah under her wing to pass on the knowledge and cultural history of Sulani through the generations. If we actually hop into create a sim when it comes to Leah, she actually has the masculine frame with a feminine clothing preference, will be able to become pregnant, can produce milk, and can't use the toilet standing. Now, there isn't actually mention of Leah being trans, but a lot of people have come to this conclusion based on her gender options and obviously having that masculine frame, but then being female in every other case. And this was honestly kind of a running theme that we saw in all packs pretty much until we got Growing Together, where the Sims team actually outright like came and said, hey, these characters are trans. Like, it's actually written into their storylines, but because of the way Island Living works, there isn't really any interactions where you can uncover that like specific piece of information. Following on from that, we have another trans icon within the game, and it is of course Morgan Ember. Now, Morgan actually isn't in the world of Glimmerbrook, but did come with Realm of Magic. They are actually the Sage of Untamed Magic. They also actually do not have a description, so it's not actually written within the description. But again, if we hop into Create a Sim, and also this one that kind of came from the gurus themselves, it always seemed that the gurus referred to Morgan as they them and used they them pronouns when talking about Morgan. Morgan has a masculine frame and is also male in the overarching gender settings, however has a clothing preference that is feminine, can't get pregnant and can't get other Sims pregnant, cannot produce milk, and also doesn't use the toilet standing. However, in September of 23, after we got the pronoun update, Morgan was actually edited and now officially has they them pronouns within the game. I mean, come on now. I said icon and I meant it. Moving on to Evergreen Harbor, the world that came with Eco Lifestyle. Not to take credit for this one, but they were partially my creation, weren't they? We of course have the Greenbergs. We have Mary and Blossom, a couple of old-timers in this town. They're trying to spruce up the place, with Mary focused on her garden and Blossom painting up unused spaces. Age isn't on their side anymore, however it's a good thing their adopted son Knox is fighting for the family name to help make the world a little more green. Unfortunately, sometimes he takes fighting too literally. These two are married. They have lived a very, very happy life together. I was so glad that we could get some like elder couples who are part of the LGBTQ community actually involved in the game. I also think that is such an important story to tell. Like, obviously young people growing up, like finding who they are, exploring that is incredible, but they need that inspiration, you know? They need these older couples who they see living together, having the time of their lives, and be like, that's what I aspire to have in life. And I just think Mary and Blossom are the epitome of that. And then the Sims team only bloody went and surprised me by adding another women loving women relationship in Eco Lifestyle in the Tinkers. We have the married couple of Tina and Yasmin Tinker. Talented but perpetually stressed Tina Tinker is a very successful freelance crafter. Her equally successful spouse, this is when they were like, right, we are hitting it home. We are getting this representation out there. Anyone who reads these bios knows exactly how these Sims are connected to each other. Olive loves nothing more than to admire her two mothers' works and dream of following in their footsteps. This is what we mean when we say we need to inspire the youth. Unfortunately, none of like the Batu characters are accessible throughout Create a Sim or manage households, but it turns out that Vi Maradi, this is actually posted on Wikipedia, which I'm fairly sure is like the Star Wars version of like Sims fandom and Wikipedia, says that Vi is actually aromantic and asexual. So whilst you don't really get to like explore that within the game at all, because none of them are romanceable, I mean, that is there canonically within the Star Wars universe, and I like to think think also within the Batu universe. Another sim who I'm fairly sure isn't actually accessible within the world, however, is canonically bisexual, is the one and only paranormal ghost Gidry. And this is actually explicitly told within a chair that exists within paranormal in its item description. Gidry really said, "I love the ladies and the gentlemen." Gidry's favorite chair, Claude René Duplantier Gidry, was above all else a serial romantic. But on nights when he wasn't out on the town with ladies and gents, he could be found in his favorite chair. A lover of love, Gidry spent many evenings by the fire entertaining his romantic conquest, though eventually he would move on to the love seat. And then you have the follow-on, which is Gidry's frisky love seat. This plush love seat once belonged to the eligible bachelor and socialite Claude René Duplantier Gidry. Gidry has always had somewhat of a reputation, but boy did he earn it. The only thing Gidry loves more than life is love, and he carried out many of his flirtatious encounters on this very love seat. We don't blame anyone who falls head over heels for this piece of furniture or its former owner. Over in Hempford-on-Bagley, that came with the one and only Women Loving Women Dream cottage living, we actually do have a WLW couple who now aren't a couple but were a couple, and actually it was a cheating scandal of the town. And obviously one of those sims is Rami Watson. Now Rami, I'm fairly sure, has like the guilty sentiment towards her husband, and also has, I think it's like an angry, like, I don't like you. She has complicated relationships with the mayor of the town, Lavina Chopra. So we can kind of assume that Rami is bisexual or pansexual. Obviously she was created before the Sexuality update came out, so she just has like the standard romance that everyone has, which is pretty much pansexual for every sim before that update. Her feelings for her husband are becoming stale and her affections have wandered. This is Lavina right here. Now her bio doesn't actually mention anything about Rami, but she has the guilty sentiment towards Rami because she's kind of feeling guilty that she actually took advantage of the fact that she had waning feelings for her husband and kind of the issues that they were having in their relationship. It's all very, very complicated here in Little Hempford-on-Bagley. Who knew that this quaint little English-inspired town would have the most gossip? But we do have one happy queer couple living in this world, and that is, of course, the little oldies Moody and Macmillan. After working an office job for more years than he cared to admit, Derek found a man willing to live the rustic dream of his youth, and the two moved to his family cottage and never left. When not fending off financial offers from developers who see their home as prime target, Ian and Derek balance their days between adventure and quiet, depending on who's in charge of the agenda. Despite, or perhaps because of, their differences, time has been most kind to these two elderly lovebirds. Not only did my wedding stories feel like it was just throwing up the gay agenda when it came to rainbows on everything when it comes to getting married, it did also have a promotional run, such as the trailer and also the cover that featured a WLW relationship between Cam and Dominic Soto. They, however, unfortunately aren't actually living within the world, but if you do visit Tartosa, you will very, very frequently see them roaming around. Cam actually ran away from her ex-fiance, jilted at the, I was going to say the altar, but the wedding arch, which is hilarious because you can't actually do that in my wedding stories. Enough about the controversy. This needs to be a positive, enlightening video. Each year, they returned on vacation in hopes of re-experiencing the love and the rich local culture only Tartosa offers. Once both women retired, they decided to make their yearly trip more permanent, which is hilarious because they don't actually live here. And she can often be found enjoying the outdoors alongside Dominique whilst chatting about local history with anyone willing to listen. You know she's yapping on about that booby tree. To be fair, if I had a booby tree where I lived, I too would be yapping on about it at any given opportunity. Bobadale high school years. One of the gayest packs we have ever received in The Sims 4. There was actually some surprises for me in this video. Whilst I was researching, I came across a couple of Sims that I have never known were part of the community. Starting off with the principal's daughter, we have Molly Prescott. Molly is a star student with a secret passion for music. Taking a page from her troublemaker little sister Amy, she's learning to embrace her more, I want to say that, like said, rebellious side. Don't know what's happened with these bios and why they're getting cut off, but canonically Molly is a lesbian, isn't interested in like romantically exploring that. She knows who she is romantically attracted to women, and is interested in messing around with women. Not saying that she's inspired by me, but who's the other lesbian called Molly who also wears glasses? I mean, I'm just saying. We obviously have the Price siblings. Now, Sydney played a very, very heavy role in the High School Years promotion when it came to the trailer for High School Years. Sydney is actually canonically bisexual. Again, this is when Sexuality was introduced right before this pack just dropped, and they all have their own like preferences, and it's like explicitly written for them all. And Sydney knows that he's bisexual as well, is not up for romantically exploring that. And then his sister Savannah is actually asexual and aromantic, has no interest in anyone whatsoever, isn't exploring romantically, knows that she is asexual and aromantic, and I love that representation. The first aro ace sim that we have ever had within the game, right there in Savannah. We have the Harjo family, and over here we have Ava, who was the shock to me. Ava is the mother. She's also the cook in the high school. Has a romantic interest in men, but also a woohoo interest in both men and women. A queen. Not just your bog standard default is Ava, which is hilarious because all like the parents and like adults in this pack, they literally put like no effort into them when it came to the way that they look. They all wear like base game outfits because they were like High School Years creator sim is so like teen coded. We feel weird putting the adults like in their fits. Then we also have Ash. Now Ash in the promotional content in the trailer actually used she they pronouns. Within the game is programmed as they them. I personally still refer to Ash as she they, but also under Ash's gender settings, masculine frame, feminine clothing preference, female overarching gender, doesn't get anyone pregnant and won't become pregnant, does produce milk, and does use the toilet standing. It is also noted on Ash's wiki, based on their surname Harjo, Ash is most likely of Muskogee Native American descent, which leads some players to believe that Ash may actually be two-spirit. And then Ash's stepbrother Noah is also gay, but is up for exploring romantically. We saw in the trailer that Noah actually had a crush on the one and only Sydney Price, but Sydney actually has a crush on someone else, which we will get into at a later stage in the video. Oh my word, I feel like I've almost ran out of breath for these high school year sims. Eloise is a lesbian. She actually isn't within the world of Copperdale, but she does own the like vintage and bubble tea shop. And Angelo Morland, who is one of the high school years teachers, is actually canonically bisexual. If you hop into Create a Sim, is interested in both men and women. For Growing Together and San Sequoia, we have Jay Robles chilling up here. Jay is actually the first canonically like written non-binary sim where Jay's story actually tells you this. So if you have Growing Together, you can actually ask about San Sequoia secrets. The higher your relationship gets with specific sims, the more that they will trust you, and the more they'll actually like open up, and you'll get different San Sequoia secrets, which are kind of like a linear story a lot of the time. And it's stated within those San Sequoia secrets that Jay is non-binary. They use they them pronouns, and they are also bisexual. Jay said, let me eat so much of that alphabet spaghetti. And then Celeste is also the first like canonically written trans woman that we have within The Sims 4. Again, her being trans is talked about in her San Sequoia secrets as you actually get to know her better. She talks about like how much Christopher is like supportive of her being trans. And again, not only is this talked about in her Sans Sequoia secret, but is also shown in Creator Sim because she has the feminine frame. She can impregnate other Sims. She can also breastfeed. Chestnut Ridge that came with Horse Ranch has a couple of Sims. So down here, the nectar making duo. Now, these two don't have the greatest relationship. They don't have very good compatibility with one another. They're actually a really interesting couple to kind of try and play because they are romantic, but they just don't get on that well. Larissa is bisexual and not romantically exploring, and then Danny actually uses they them pronouns, and also in their athletic wear is wearing the binder. The icon, the legend, the moment, the man that left Agnes Crumplebottom, the one who got away, Roberto Crinkletop, is actually bisexual. I had no idea about this when it came to Roberto. I think it's actually stated within Creator Sim if you go into like full edit mode with him, and then he did also get a little trailer posted over on Twitter that basically confirmed that he was Agnes's ex-husband, and he ran away to Chestnut Ridge, faked his death, and then started going by Roberto Crinkletop. And last but certainly not least, I'm sure there are a bunch of townies who are still waiting to come out and worm their way into our hearts in all the future packs that we can expect to see within The Sims 4, but for rent. We have Tomarang. I actually did not know this, as it's not actually stated within her bio, but Venetia Kayaputri is actually a lesbian. And then when it comes to the Linsaja household, we have another relationship over here with Khan and a Toro. These two are actually really, really cute, kind of like Sans Sequoia Secrets. There are these things that you can ask about when you get to know someone in Tomarang. I think they're called Tomarang Truths. They kind of tell you like a Sim storyline. The closer you grow with them, the more you kind of find out. I actually thought that these two were like an elderly love affair. I thought that they had like found each other quite late in life. Turns out I did not get that right. They actually met when they were very, very young over in Salvadorada whilst they were both traveling. One of them actually like fell off a cliff basically and was like holding on, and then the other one, I think it was Arturo, saved him. So they've been together for a really long time. I think I thought that they were a late in life couple because their kid is actually said to be like stepdaughter, but apparently that just happens with like pre-made townies who are in same-sex relationships, which is a little bit weird. You would have thought that we would have maybe like got past that with like all the different ways of family trees working now, but apparently that's just the way that the game is still currently programmed. And then Panya, who is pretty much the sim that is spawned to be your landlord, is also bisexual. They really said, we want anyone to be able to romance their landlord, so let's just make him available to everyone. There are also a couple of sims that I haven't mentioned who aren't in the game. Obviously, I talked about Sydney having a crush on someone else and then Noah crushing on Sydney. That is actually Liam Beckett. I'm fairly sure Liam is available on the Maxis Gallery. Usually when they have trailer sims, they upload them to the Maxis Gallery page at a later date so that simmers can go and download them. He is interested in mess around with both men and women. However, doesn't have any like romantic settings, so may be aromantic. And then Hina K was also the sim that was focused on when it came to the Snowy Escape trailers, and Hina is also in a relationship with another woman. On the family that was uploaded to Maxis, they're actually married, so they're wives of each other. Whereas I'm fairly sure in the trailer, they're just kind of like meeting and like getting to know each other. Imagine having a meet cute on a side of a mountain. Can't relate. Could never be me. First of all, you wouldn't catch me in that cold environment. Now I want to talk about the messy sims that are the base game sims. So most of these were used as like promotional content when it came to the Sims 4 base game. First off, we have Lacey Styles. Lacey and Amber were actually first posted. They were papped by The Sims Spain on the 14th of February 2015, and they were actually seen on a first date together. But then it turns out that Amber actually is seen marrying Armand in the City Living official festivals trailer. Photographic evidence, in case you didn't believe me. And then Armand, who was her best friend, like, gets married. However, on a promotional render, Armand is shown to be in a relationship with Bjorn Tarok. That came out in 2014, whereas the trailer came out in 2016. So it shows that Armand and Bjorn aren't actually in a romantic relationship anymore, but they were in this Be Proud in The Sims 4 promo. Messy, 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 but I kind of live for the drama. You know what? As long as everyone lived happily ever after. I'm sad that the gays didn't stay together, but they're all still bisexual or pansexual at the end of the day. So there we have it. There is my in-depth look at LGBTQ plus representation throughout the years in The Sims 4. I hope I got everything. I'm fairly sure I got most things. There may be a couple of misses when it comes to the townies. It's hard keeping tabs on them all, okay? There's a lot of them. Trust me, I know. I've been doing townie makeovers for like almost 4 years now. But I hope this video was helpful. I also hope it was enjoyable. I just really wanted to celebrate how far the representation has come within this game and how the Sims just kind of keep getting louder and louder. And I really do feel, obviously, there are a lot of people working on this team with different sexualities, different gender identities, and I'm fairly sure they want to represent themselves as much as we want to represent ourselves and the people we love in the stories that we tell in The Sims 4. So every day I feel like they're just pushing and seeing how they can best represent people with what they are currently working with when it comes to like the coding, the limitations. I do still feel like there's a lot of progress to be made. Honestly, I kind of want to make a video of like updates I would like to see when it comes to gender, sexuality, pronouns, all of those things. Who knows? I may not only do it for Pride Month. That might be coming in like July. I am not a Pride corporation, thank you very much. No rainbow washing here, but I appreciate you all so much. Let me know if you learned anything new in this video. I hope you're all having a very happy, a very joyful Pride Month. Stay proud of exactly who you are. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for letting me be here, be queer, for playing with all my little Sims and falling in love with them just as much as I do. I appreciate you all so much, and I will speak to you all in my next one. Bye now.